If you're like many people, you want to have something to leave behind for your children when you pass away. You don't want to have your home and your assets gobbled up by Medicaid, and you don't want to leave this giant tax burden to them either. Unfortunately, what many people do to avoid all this sometimes is even worse. I'm here to tell you, you have better options. If we haven't met, my name is Brad Myers, 20-year home inspector turned real estate agent with Howard Hanna Real Estate Services right here in Fulton County, Ohio. So over the last several years, I've learned quite a bit about retirement homes and how expensive they can be, especially if you're there long term. Now, while Medicaid is there to help us out with these extensive costs, you need to keep in mind that Ohio has what they call a 5-year look-back period for Medicaid applications. This means that Medicaid will review your financial history going back 5 years. If you give your assets away to your children or a trust or anyone else in that 5-year period, the state's going to say, nope, these assets need to be brought back to the table and they need to be spent down before you can qualify for Medicaid. Now, the reason the house comes into play is because it's considered a countable asset and they will place a Medicaid lien on your estate. This means that your beneficiaries can be forced to sell that property in order to pay back Medicaid. As a result, many people will take their house and gift it to their children saying, hey, I need to get this house out of my name for 5 years so that Medicaid doesn't force me to spend down the equity or place a lien on my property. Now, while this is accurate, it will work, it also causes a huge tax issue for your beneficiaries. When you gift your house to your children while you're still alive, they inherit your cost basis as well. Meaning that if you bought your house in 1950 for, say, $50,000, they're going to get that $50,000 cost basis. So if they decide to sell your house for the current value of, say, $300,000, there is now a $250,000 gain that they have to pay tax on. Okay, that's the bad news. Here's a little bit of good news. There are ways to protect your property from Medicaid and pass it to your children without the tax penalties by using what's called a Medicare trust or a grantor irrevocable trust. Essentially, you're taking your property and you're gifting it to your trust instead of your family. This gets the property out of your name and starts that 5-year clock for Medicaid. And the best part is, when you pass away, the property will get transferred directly to your beneficiaries, and they're going to get what they call a stepped up in basis. So basically, instead of having that $50,000 basis that you have, they're going to have a stepped up basis of whatever the property is worth when you pass away. So say the property is now worth $300,000, their new basis is $300,000, not $50,000. So if it's worth $300,000, they sell it for $300,000, there's no capital gains. Now, there are some disadvantages to these trusts. Number one, for example, is when you put your house in this trust, the trust is irrevocable. It means you cannot change the terms of the trust. Consequently, the house has to remain in the trust until the designated time of the trust, such as when you pass away. Additionally, although you can sell a property while it's in the trust, any proceeds from the sale of that house have to stay in the trust. Otherwise, the 5-year Medicaid clock starts all over again. And number two, trusts can be very complicated and require specific legal language to be valid. I strongly recommend that you contact an experienced attorney that specializes in these types of trusts. At the end of the day, I'm not trying to convince you to put your house into a trust. I'm just saying that gifting your house to your children may not be your best option. Consider speaking with an estate attorney and find out what path is best for you and your family. I truly hope this helps. Thanks for watching. Take care.